so that we can be free souls when we die, what are the chances that in the following years the energy will be taken down? And are there any other planets that have energy webs like our planets?
Right. The energy web that was placed around the planet was almost unique because it was designated as a prison planet. The reptilian race has a hand in the operation of that net, but it's not the sole controlling organizer of it. There are holes appearing in the net now. I think we may have talked about this last session, I can't remember, but there are definitely holes appearing. I think the reptilians are just as much trapped as we are, hence that's why they would really enjoy a portal, because then they can get out without having to worry about the energy web. The web is energized predominantly from Saturn, and the repeating station, that's a technical term, or booster station might be a more easily understood word, on the far side of the moon, dark side of the moon, that is temporarily out of action. That means that the net around the Earth is pulsing at an irregular beat, and there are nodes of energy, which mean in other areas it's quite weak and quite thin, and therefore, literally, energy holes are appearing. So, a very powerful being, either good or evil, could escape and go where they chose. So, it's still operational. The reason it hasn't been taken down is because two things. The exact location of where this is coming from isn't known, and the other point is that this is this damned business about free will. Again and again and again the argument has been used. Allegedly we're a planet of 5, 6, 7, 8 billion people, and yet we are ruled by a tiny percentage, and the argument used is, well, the mass of people want us to do this to them. And I know that sounds absolutely ludicrous, but the argument is, if these people, the 8 billion people, I beg your pardon, didn't want us to do it, we wouldn't be able to do it. So they must want us to do it, because they've let us do it. Now, actually, when you are a very highly evolved person, so 5th, 6th, 7th dimension, there's years and years of argument there. You can't just say, "Oh, that's nonsense." But actually, this argument has been going on for thousands of years. When do you draw the line? When do the mass of people actually agree to something, and when do they not? And at the moment, humanity is beginning to say, "No, we don't want this." So I think it's becoming clear that humans are changing from the last sort of few hundred years, anyway.
So. Back to when you die and you meet your loved ones. This is the corollary, and the loved ones apparently say, "Oh, come and enter the light, come with us." And it's a trap. Is that a trap? And it's a really cruel trick, isn't it?
Yes. It's terrible. It's deception at the highest level. The thing is, you see, when a physical body dies, the soul has got some choices. Sometimes you can be so attached to somebody or a place that you don't leave, especially if somebody is in a critical, part of their life, and you've been a guardian of that person, and you want them to do something, then you may not leave, and you will stay around so that you can advise that person through very subtle means, or that's what people call a ghost. Or you can ascend and be recycled and then come back into another body, or you can ascend or be in what's called a freeze box and held for a few hundred years or 1,000 years and then put back, or you can be really, really strong, find a weakness through the net, get out, and either return to source or to your star family. So there are options depending on the circumstances and the individual.
Okay, back to the CC questions. And this is a question, hang on, let me just check. So many, people are asking millions of questions, and it was slightly different. For instance, when other intelligent beings die, do they have the light, or do they just know what's going to happen next? Is it just like stepping out of the body?
Does the question mean intelligent beings on this planet or separate?
And somebody else, humans. Let's say humans that are non-Earth that live on, Tegeta 4 or something. Some other habitable Earth-like planet that doesn't have an archonic grid. What happens when they die?
Well, they either go back to a source or they go back to the star family, and it's in an energy format. I mean, the reality is that you, outside of this grid, you have the choice into which body you will incarnate into. Now, if you're coming from source, you can incarnate in any of the dimensions. But if you are in a fifth dimensional body or a fourth dimensional body, and there's a net around you, you have lost that free will because you are recycled back. But, if you are a third or a fourth dimensional soul, then you will reincarnate back in the third or fourth dimension. If you're fifth dimension, you'll be in the fifth dimension. So it's about your star family and where you're connected to most. We're very social creatures. We generally don't like to be on our own, so we like to be part of a family. And it's in a different way than we understand it on a 3D planet. It's a communication, a feeling of love, a feeling of being with people that are very special to you. And of course, in the 3D, where we have so much physicality, sadly, to some extent, some people anyway, have lost that connection. And that's why over the last 30 years, we've seen the breakup of many families. I'm of an age now where I can remember the 1970s, and people would sit round and play a game of Monopoly. Well, it may not be the best game in the world, but, that's what they would play, and they would do stuff together, or they would go to the cinema. Well, through the advent of technology, and also through the advent of the culture of self, we've seen the fragmentation, where I had some research done in this country to show something like only 15 to 20% of families eat a meal together, because they're all in their own rooms or they're all doing other things. So that's a weakening of what is a natural aspect. Humans naturally should be part of a group. So technology, deliberately in my estimation, is trying to fracture people away from the natural connections and trying to make people individual, because if you are individual, you can be picked off. You don't have support networks, you don't have someone else to bounce an idea off. If you are very isolated and individual in your concepts and your thoughts, you can be manipulated. So I see it as part of a deliberate policy by the artificial intelligence, the AI, which is mankind or humankind's